Welcome to Amplify, a podcast series from the Association for Accounting Marketing. My name is Abbey Kanellakis, and I am a practice growth manager with Rea Associates. I'm happy to be your host for today's session, and I'm particularly happy to have the opportunity to speak with Todd Cohen. Todd is considered by many to be the nation's leading voice on how to build successful sales culture, and for good reason. He is regularly asked to present his unique approach to sales for non-sales professionals close to 100 times each year. In fact, in 2015, Todd was awarded the Certified Speaking Professional title, which is the highest designation one can receive from the National Speakers Association. In addition to his incredible presentation prowess, Todd is an acclaimed author of 2 books that zero in on the sales culture: Everyone's in Sales and Stop Apologizing and Start Selling. Additionally, he is a regular contributor to the Huffington Post and the Philadelphia Business Journal. He also regularly writes for many other publications, including his own monthly newsletter, the Sales Culture Newsletter. Now, rather than go on and on myself, I'm going to turn it over to Todd, who can explain his approach much better than little old me. Welcome to Amplify, Todd.
Thanks, Abby. I appreciate you reading that word for word.
Well, on today's episode, we're going to be smashing the stereotype of sales.
Yes.
Now, as a marketer and public relations professional myself, I've never fancied myself to be a salesperson. So actually the thought of going out to sell anything myself really freaks me out, which leads me to my first question. Todd, what do you mean when you say everyone's in sales? Yeah,
so it's a basic part of our human nature. It's a basic part of our human DNA. So there's really 2 things that I'm after when I make that statement. First of all, we all sell every day, whether we realize it or not. So one of my taglines is, with every conversation, every single connection, every conversation, every time we connect with somebody, it's actually a selling moment, because you're leaving an image. You're dropping an image in somebody's mind, which makes them say, I want to buy you, which means start a relationship with you, or they're thinking, yeah, I don't think so, right? So whether you think you are a salesperson or not, and we unfortunately fall into that, I don't want to be in sales because we think sales is this guy, hey now, that we forget that that's just the stereotype of sales. None of us could be anywhere if we didn't think that, if we didn't know that we sell ourselves with every conversation. The second thing I mean when I say everyone's in sales is, if you're part of an organization, everything you do, whether you realize it or not, it could be something completely innocuous that you think is irrelevant, or it could be something directly customer facing, but everybody does something that impacts the customer's decision to say yes. So I work with a lot of accounting firms, and I work with a lot of organizations that have accountants and finance professionals in them. And I teach them, they're all part of a jigsaw puzzle, a Rubik's Cube, if you will. And while they may not realize it, they do something every day that has a downstream effect that ultimately does something else that does something, and so forth and so on, that helps the customer say yes. So we're all in sales every day.
Really, really good explanation for that. Now, what do you mean by a sales culture? What is a sales culture? And to me, it just sounds like a fancy way to say sales training. How am I wrong?
No. It's not even a matter of being wrong. It's a perception issue, and that's exactly why I do what I do. So for years and years, I led sales organizations, or I was an individual contributor, and I went through classic sales training. Do this many calls, write this many proposals, answer this many RFPs, blah 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 blah. That's sales training. Well, the challenge is, sales training is fine for the sales team, but what about the entire organization? What are you saying about them? You see, they all contribute. Everybody does something, as I just said a moment ago. So sales culture is talking about the mindset and the behavior of selling that everybody embodies and employs every single day. So when I talk about sales culture, I'm not talking about sales training. I am not a conventional classic sales trainer. You know, I get those calls and I say, I can do that, but you're really missing the point. If you just teach the sales team how to sell, well, in today's day and age, if everybody doesn't have a sales mindset, like, hey, what I do matters and what I do is required to help you, Mr. or Mrs. Salesperson, impact the customer's decision, then you're siloed, right? So in my world, sales culture is 100% about the mindset that we're all selling with every conversation. Does that make sense?
Absolutely, absolutely. And it really does make it a second nature to you if you take that approach. That's
right. You know, people say to me all the time, look, I'm not in sales. And my response, of course, that's the worst thing you could say to me. My response is, well, I understand what you're saying, and let me share with you that you really are more important than you give yourself credit for. See, that's how I come at it.
That's awesome. Now, why do you believe that this message of sales culture is the right message for our particular constituency?
Well, I think it's not just your constituency. I think it's all, right? In this case, we're talking about accounting and finance professionals and so forth and so on. Look, nobody wakes up in the morning and says, I am proud to be overhead, right? Nobody wakes up and says, hey, today's the day I hope that I'm completely irrelevant. Please teach me how to be irrelevant, right? It's true. You know, people go to work and they contribute and they do because they want to make a difference. I'm a glass half full kind of a guy that way, right? And I had 30 plus years of corporate life. I've seen every angle of that. This is so important because to your constituency, or to all constituencies, because the customer ultimately can't say yes until you do what you do, right? Until the finance people do what they do, until the accountants do what they do. And then the other part of that is, as an accounting professional, the further you go up in the chain, right? You know, you have to learn that being technically proficient just isn't good enough. Being a great accountant is never going to get you really to where you want to get to. Now, hey, if you sit down with me and you say, Todd, I am happy to be a mid-level staff accountant for the rest of my life, great. But you're still going to have to do things where you're going to have to sell yourself. You're going to have to ask for things. You're going to have to pitch your ideas, your thoughts, your beliefs, everything that's important to you to help your clients get better. You're going to have to sell, in quotes. Yeah. So my message is so important to your world because you have to sell as much as anybody else. And we have to break that stereotype that, hey, I'm just the accountant, I'm not in sales. Well,
it really is we are all in this together.
Well, that's exactly right. You know, I say all along, and I'll give this up, you know, in my keynotes, I say there's 3 deadly words to a person individually. And those 3 deadly words are, I'm just the. And when you say, I'm just the, what you're saying is, I don't matter. Mm-hmm. What you're saying is, when I have a great idea, please make sure you tell me no. You know, listen, I have a great idea. I'm an accountant. And I have a great idea on behalf of my client. This will make his life better, cheaper, whatever. And I have to go pitch it. I have to go tell you about it. Well, that's sales.
That's interesting. Yeah, I love the different mindset that you're bringing to it, because it is just being a human being and forming a relationship.
That's right. That's right. It's all about human behavior.
Absolutely.
Period.
Yeah. When you boil it down, it's so simple.
Well, yeah, and unfortunately, it gets so caught up in that negativity, you know, look, I do what I do, and I don't like the image of some slimy salespeople either. I bought a house this past year. I had a horrible experience, you know, with a couple of people involved in the transaction. Thankfully, my real estate agent was amazing. I can't say that everybody was, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I remember having a conversation and saying, listen, you are screwing this up because you are doing everything that salespeople aren't supposed to do, and you're reinforcing how painful you're making it for all of us.
Absolutely.
So.
No, I get it. You're absolutely right. And,
Yeah.
There is that negative connotation stereotype that has to do with sales, which brings me to my next question. Because in the introduction, I said, how terrified I am to go out and say that I'm a salesperson.
Right.
Why do you think it's so scary? And why do people tend to, I guess, be terrified of that, being a salesperson?
Yeah, well, first of all, it's the stereotype, right?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, because nobody wants to think, Abbey, nobody wants to think, oh God, here comes Abbey. She's going to sell me, right? I mean, nobody likes to be sold anything, right? And the other, at the end of the day, people don't always like to ask, right? They think like, if I'm asking, I'm being pushy, I'm being obnoxious, I'm shoving you into a decision you don't want to do. And of the many things I teach, one of the most important, because that makes it sound like everything else isn't important, but I should say, and one of the things I'm most passionate about, and the reason I wrote my second book was, we turn into what's called the sales apologist, right? That's the person, you've earned the right to ask for something. As a customer, as a client, I'm waiting for you to educate me and then show me the next step, which is nothing more than sales.
Mm-hmm.
And you don't take it because you're afraid that I'm going to push back or I'm going to reject you. And by the way, rejection is a myth, right? It's a myth. It's a personal thing. If you're my accountant and I say, Abbey, I reject you personally, I'm not rejecting you. If you asked me for something and I push back, what I'm saying is I don't have enough information. Keep educating me. See, we're afraid to sell because we don't want to be lumped into that category of, hey, we don't want to
slimy and
yeah, right. Neither do I. Like, I don't want that either. But regardless, we're all selling whether we realize it or not with every conversation. So you're going to be better off by getting ahead of that and embracing it and understanding it than running from it.
Kind of off track here, but is this a lesson in confidence as well?
Yeah. Well, it's a life lesson, frankly.
Mm-hmm.
For me, it all started when I lost my job 10 years ago. And, I had to go into the world and sell myself. And here I was, this, big deal, blah, 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 executive vice president who I thought I knew it all. And I realized I didn't. And I realized that I had to get around sort of certain things that were holding me back. And one of them was start asking, and I never had a problem asking as a salesperson, but asking as a person, without the wrapper around it, can be tough. And that's what we do every day. If you come to me and you say, hey, Todd, I have a great idea, but it's going to cost you some more money, some more filing, some additional time. We're going to have to do an extension, some more research, and you're afraid to ask me that, well, then I'm the one who loses, right? Mm-hmm. So you just have to have some confidence that when you're asking, it's because you've earned the right to ask. And I'm not gonna bite your face off as a result.
I hope not.
No. No.
Okay, so we hear that the first step in any journey is the hardest. Yeah. And you just kind of alluded to that with your personal journey. But when it comes to sales, what is the first step? What can we do from an individual standpoint to do a better job of selling?
Yeah, so I think therein lies your answer. We have to stop putting selling in this box, and then everything else we do is over here. But I got to stop doing that and go over here and sell. See, that's the problem. Yeah. As soon as you put the label on something as selling, people freak out, right? Mm-hmm. Because immediately the connotations start. Oh God, I don't want to be that used car, slimy, insurance selling, with all due respect to insurance salespeople. And I know great used car salespeople don't, so I think the first most important thing to do, and this is the hardest step, and this is where I focus so much of my keynotes and my workshops is understanding that it's not a mountain to climb, that you're already doing it, right? So you and I have been having this conversation for, I don't know, 15 minutes now, and we've already been selling each other, you and I. You know, you've already made a decision on me, whether I'm credible, not credible. And the same with me, Abby. I'm looking at you thinking, you know, what does she do? And is she credible? And does she really get it? And we're leaving images with each other.
Yeah.
And those images are buying moments, right?
Absolutely.
And so the first step is to stop thinking about the first step. The first step is to, the first step is to understand you're already selling with every conversation.
Mm-hmm.
So wrap your head around that fact.
That's crazy. The mind blown moment. It's the secret to selling is to stop selling.
Well, it's interesting you said that, because it's funny. When I wrote the second book, I was actually going to title it "Stop Selling, You'll Sell More."
Absolutely.
And it's funny you say that. You get it, right, Abby?
Mm-hmm.
You get it, and it's like handling objections. You know how you handle objections? Stop trying to fix things.
Yeah, absolutely. You're right.
Don't fix it. I don't need you. If I give you an objection to doing more work or doing more services, it's because I don't really understand it. So what you're going to do is facilitate the conversation with me,
mm-hmm.
and then together we'll figure it out. And I'll wind up saying yes one way or the other. You won't have to sell me.
Yeah.
You'll educate me, inform me, influence, create integrity, differentiate, all of those things that are selling behaviors.
Absolutely. So who do I talk to get started with something like this?
Me.
Well, that's an easy answer.
Yeah, me. I do about between 80 and 90 appearances a year between keynotes and workshops, and most of them are to non-sales audiences. I mean, they're not to room. I do plenty of sales meetings, right? That's the easy. Those are the easy ones, because we're in the same, world, as it were. The really challenging ones are when I work with my accounting clients, and I just did a keynote last week for a room full of internal auditors, right? I mean, and they loved it. They got it. They walked away going, now I know why I'm not achieving goals, right?
Mm-hmm.
I speak to HR. There's nobody exempt from this message. It's a universal, you said a message of confidence. It's a message of human DNA. You can't escape this. You just can't.
It's ingrained in our organization and who we are as people.
Well, that's right. That's right. I mean, my accounting firm, Eisner Amper, here in Philadelphia, just had me in to do a workshop. And it was very interesting for me to come in there and talk to them, not only as somebody who uses them professionally as a client, but as a practitioner as well of what I do. So it made for quite a powerful workshop.
I bet. Absolutely.
Yeah.
So, okay, why is this sales culture concept so important? And should we be looking at it as individuals, or should we actually look at it from an organization-wide? You want everyone on board?
Well, both. I mean, so it's so important. It's very simple reason. It's important because if you don't have a sales culture, then you have a siloed culture, and silos kill companies, period, bar none. I don't need to be a Harvard MBA to write a 50,000 page book to say what I just said. And it always cracks me up where academics write these long books to articulate very simple points. And that's the simplest point I can make. If you have silos, you have everybody going, not my job, that's them. And when you have that, then you have this. And when you have this, you have mediocrity, because everything gets paralyzed, nothing gets done.
And there's no accountability.
And thank you. You took the words, Abby, right out of my mouth. There's no accountability. Everybody's in defense mode, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then guess who pays the price? The client.
Absolutely.
The client pays the price because they're sitting around going, would you guys please get your act together?
Yeah.
So I can move on with my business.
Yeah. This is not what I'm paying you for.
Right. And there's 1,000 examples I could give of siloed siloing, and it's pretty self-explanatory.
Yeah. Wow.
Yeah.
Perfect.
Yeah.
Now, okay, so do you have any tips that you can share with our audience currently listening to this or watching this that can help them achieve more today, like they can go out and put it to work?
Well, hire me, of course. No,
of course.
No. So, yeah, of course. I mean, I love to talk about this stuff. So one of the things that you can do right off the bat, and this is a very hard thing to do, and it will cost you nothing to do it. That's so, the best things in life are free, right? Well, I'm about to, I heard that somewhere, some old movie.
Right.
I just gave away my age big time. So, start thinking differently about your interactions. Now, here's what I mean by that. So in my first book, Everyone's in Sales, there's a line in there that I use in all my keynotes, and it goes like this: don't do anything different. Think differently about what you do. So keep being a great whatever it is that you do. Fill in the blank, right? Not a title. Tell me what you do, right? Keep being a great, we'll call it, finance professional, tax, auditing, whatever it might be. However, think differently about every interaction. When I get on the elevator with you in the morning and I say, how was your weekend? And if if you answer me in a way that's kind of like a downer, you haven't sold yourself to me.
Yeah.
And as a result, I probably won't want to interact with you. And you may be the person that's required to help me with a client issue, right? But you've sent the message, leave me alone. Well, you haven't sold yourself. Think about every email, every text message. Unfortunately, I wish there was no such thing, right? We've lost the art of conversation. Every single time you interact with somebody, try to remember proactively what's the image that you're laying down. If you can start there, you will achieve your goals better, more easy. Wait, let me think of my English here. You will have better track record at getting people to draw toward you. And that's what this is about. It's not about selling a thing, a product, or a service. It's not selling you. Mm-hmm. I know that you're good at what you do. I mean, Abby, I give everybody an A to start with, right? So I looked at you on LinkedIn. I checked out your background. I saw what you do. With me, you have an A until you give me a reason to think differently, right?
Sure.
Now, that's my way of going about things. Some people do it the other way. Mm-hmm. But to keep the A, you have to be aware of what you're doing and saying with every conversation, because I'm going to make a buying decision. I'm going to make there's a relationship forming decision.
Absolutely.
And that's sales.
You're right.
And so,
I think it's very interesting. Oh, I'm sorry. I think it's really interesting because in our industry today, we hear so much about disruption, and you're disrupting the relationship and the sales process even as we speak.
That's right. That's right. Well, and I even want to get the word, and you make a great point, because I even want to get the word sales process out of it, because that scares people, right? So every year I do a series of workshops with Ernst & Young. They're fabulous, fabulous client, one of my largest clients. And I work with hundreds of their up and rising stars every year, senior managers, pre-partner track people, sometimes a little earlier, just, manage, it depends, kind of, rising managers kind of a thing. And because they have to learn that if you want to make partner, if you really want to make a difference, you've got to start thinking differently about how you sell yourself. And you can't be afraid to say to a client, look, you're paying me for my knowledge. You're also paying me to educate you about what you need to do next. It's not about the money. It's about keeping you safe, keeping you out of the hands of the IRS, whatever you want to say that it is that you do.
Whatever keeps you up at night.
Well, that's exactly right. Listen, I pay my accountants a lot of money, but you know what? I don't begrudge them $1 because they take the time. They sell me with every conversation. We need to do this. We need to do that. Todd, there's a new regulation you need to pay attention to. Now, I know all this is going to cost me money. I get it. Mm-hmm. But if they don't take me to the next step, I'll never say yes. So they're selling me every time they educate me.
Absolutely.
They just have to take it to the final say, God, can we do this now? Yes, start.
Yes. Why are we talking? Do it.
Yeah. And then I get the bill and I'm like, oh, but it's okay.
Exactly. Because you know that you're taken care of.
I know I'm taken care of. That's right. I don't begrudge the money a dime.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
Did that answer the question?
I think you did. I think you answered it very thoroughly. Thank you.
Yeah.
And, I have had a blast talking to you today, Todd. It's been great, getting to know you a little bit better and hearing about sales culture from your perspective. And I want to encourage everybody to go out there and check out your website and to learn a little bit more about you and what you do. It's toddcohen.com.
Two Ds.
Two Ds. Very good.
Yeah.
I'm sure we will have something on the bottom of the screen that will spell it out for everyone.
It's just so funny because the Todd Cohen 1D is a photographer in Chicago, and periodically I get his emails asking where my wedding photos are, and I'm like, I'm sorry, I'm the wrong Todd Cohen.
Not it.
But I'm sure he's a great guy. Right, and I'm sure he's a great guy, but I don't take I'm not a wedding photographer.
Yes. Great disclaimer there. Now, listeners, viewers, this wraps up another episode of Amplify. Thank you for joining us today, and watch for another episode from the Association for Accounting Marketing next month. If you haven't already, please subscribe to the Association for Accounting Marketing's YouTube channel to see future episodes. Or if you'd rather just listen to the audio, you can subscribe to Amplify on iTunes. I'm Abbey Kanellakis with Rea Associates, reminding you to always aim high.
Power up, listening, we're always aiming